Hello.
Hi.
So we're here at the Istanbul airport. I'll show you around because it's a pretty neat airport.
Pretty fancy.
Yeah, it's pretty new too, I think. Whoa. So yeah, and we were planning to film yesterday,
Yeah. Somewhere nice in Cappadocia.
or even the room, just because it was a kind of a special room.
Yeah, our hotel was pretty cool. It was made out of a fairy chimney, which is something Cappadocia is pretty famous for. But unfortunately, our plans were derailed a little bit.
A little bit. So yeah, just long story short, we'll talk a bit more when it comes to there, but we got food poisoning like pretty badly, and so all yesterday we were just in bed, like just lying down, not doing anything.
And that's
Yeah.
we're still recovering. So yeah.
Yeah, we finally made it to like be able to eat solid things today, and so yeah, now we're just trying to get
Just
over it.
surviving till we get to Cairo, essentially.
So yeah, we're here. We want to talk about, well, not just food poisoning, but just basic Cappadocia.
In general.
Yeah. So we took the train from Sofia to. You want to change it? Okay. From Sofia to Istanbul, and that didn't really have anything special.
I do feel like they should call the sleeper train the not sleeper train, but
They
other than
do
that,
wake us up a lot. I get it's just unfortunate that the border is almost halfway, and so when you leave at 10, like you go through passport around 1 a.m. and it takes a long time to go through passport. It's not just like, I don't know, it just takes so long.
it takes
which
so
I don't get.
long. And you have to get off the train and stand in the freezing
Yeah.
cold in a line.
Which
and then,
again, I don't get. Like, why don't they come on the train? And anyway,
and this time we didn't have to when we went to Sofia, but this time they made us take all of our luggage off. And when we got off the train, we're like, "Do we need to take our luggage?" And they're like, "No, no, no." And we're like, oh, "Okay." So we left, and then we'd been standing outside for about 20 minutes, maybe. And they're like, "Where are the people from 22 and 24?" Not in English. And we're like, "Oh, that's us." And they're like, "You need to take your luggage." And we're like, "Okay." So
yeah.
that was relaxing.
And so yeah, we took the train. That day was like all about transportation because we took the train to Istanbul, then the metro,
For about an hour, hour and a half.
yeah, to some sort of station, and the bus to the airport, and then
Yeah.
the plane to
Kayseri.
Kayseri, and then the shuttle bus to our Airbnb. So I think we checked off. The only thing we didn't do
No
was a
boats,
ferry.
yeah.
We could have though. That would be fun.
We could have in Istanbul, yeah. We did it a lot.
But anyway, so that was it for that day because once we got there, we just crashed.
So I think we got there at like 10 by the time we were actually in.
And then we had talked about the hot air balloon because that's what you do in Cappadocia is do the hot air balloon. And we're like, well, it could be good not to do it the first day, just because we'll be tired from the traveling. But when we got there, they're like, okay, so you're going on the hot air balloon tomorrow,
Oh, good.
which ended up working in our favor
It did.
because the 2 days later were really windy and there were no hot air balloons.
Yeah.
And the day after, we had food poisoning, so that day would not have worked well at all.
No. We barely made it out of bed to watch the hot air balloons from our window
Yeah.
yesterday.
But no, do you want to talk about the hot air balloons?
Well, the hot air balloon was pretty cool. I had to kind of convince Oliver a little bit to do it
So
because it was 160 euros.
Which
So
is a lot for me.
It's a lot of money. I think for anyone. I don't think anyone's like, what a bargain, yay. But I really wanted to do it. I've wanted to do it since I first heard about it. Like the pictures all look stunning. And I would say, like, even though you weren't overly keen to start off with, I'd say you were happy with it.
Yeah, no, like once we got, like, at the end of the day, I was like, I'm glad I did it, and I still don't understand the price, but I'm happy that I did it.
It was beautiful.
But do you want to talk about like the experience and how we were? So we took off. Like we had to wake up around 6:30 just so that we could be in the balloon by sunrise, which was great to have the sunrise in the balloon. Nothing super special. So like it was kind of cool. That I guess I don't know if it's regular or just because he was a really good pilot, but we would go like down like really couple of meters from the ground, like a couple of times, like I felt like with a long stick I could have poked a mountain.
Yeah.
Which is what you do in camping. No. So yeah, we were really close to the surface.
You're so much calmer about that than I was. There was a couple times where I thought I could poke a mountain. There was a couple times where I thought we were going to hit the ground and die, but you know.
But no, it was
going really slow.
fantastic. Yeah, it was always really slow, and like he never seemed panicked, which is good for a pilot.
Yeah.
But then like when we were really close to the ground at some point, he's like, "Did I tell you that I called my hot air balloon Titanic?" And I'm like, "Right, that's a great time to mention this."
And then I am Leonardo.
And I'm single.
And I'm single, that's right. And then he said that, he's like, "Oh, is this your first hot air balloon ride?" And a lot of us were like, yeah, first time. And he's like, "Oh, it's my second."
But I'm guessing it's things that he says every day.
time,
Like,
yeah.
he must say it all the time. And yeah, this one guy in a hot air balloon asked him a lot of questions, but they were good questions. And so he told us it took 2 years for him to get his pilot's license.
Yeah.
And like,
And the first year, you have another person with you, and it isn't until after that you get to fly solo.
which like was really reassuring. Like I didn't feel unsafe at the beginning, but like knowing that he'd had so much experience, it's really reassuring. There was something else. Oh right, so it was not only the ground, but at some point, which probably was one of my highlights, was when we were like we flew over a mosque, and like the minaret of the mosque was really close.
Oh yeah.
And we also stuck by a balloon that was Jen's favorite, so that was also kind of neat because
It's in all of our pictures.
it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter what color your balloon is because you don't really see your balloon, you see other balloons. So it was nice that we stuck next to a
Really
nice
colorful
looking
one,
yeah.
yeah.
Our balloon was not too bad, but it was great.
It had orange on it, so I mean, if that's your thing.
And then I think this is not a highlight, but one part that made me laugh was arriving, like when we landed. Do you want to talk about that?
Okay, so when you land, it's essentially like a pickup truck carrying like a flatbed, or towing a flatbed, sorry, not carrying it. And then you have to land, and it's a lot bigger than you think it is, the like cart that we're standing in, because we had 12 people plus the captain
Yeah.
in our basket, and like there was space, like there's 5 compartments. So you have to land this big basket on the flatbed, like by going down onto it, which is, it's not a big target. It's about the same size as the basket. It's not huge.
There are guys on the ground that help.
Yeah, and there's these guys, ours were wearing yellow jackets, and I think the guys in the yellow jackets probably had the worst job relating to hot air balloon rides. Because to take off, so they fill the hot air balloon with hot air, and these guys are holding the ropes, and they're just like getting pulled as the balloon goes up. And then for landing, similarly, they have ropes, and they're trying to steer it onto the flatbed. But often they're just getting dragged places from what we saw. So it does look like a stressful job. So once we landed safely on the flatbed, and he made a big deal before we left that we needed to do a brace position, and when he told us we needed to all get in the brace position and nobody was doing anything silly or anything other than
No
the brace
photos,
position.
no cameras,
no
no
photos,
nothing.
You're in the brace position, and it was a big deal. And then once we started landing, we're like, okay, so now, and like we're getting ready, and he's like, ha, no brace position, we don't need that. And then we landed with like barely a bump.
But I think it was just because we were lucky there was no wind.
Yeah.
Close to the ground.
We had good conditions. So then once we're on the truck just starts driving around. Our balloon is still fully inflated, and we're just going for a drive around, I wouldn't call it the countryside, around the area in the city. Oliver decides to sing a little song about being on a balloon safari, which was nice. I'm sure everyone in our balloon enjoyed that. But yeah, it was just really interesting. And then they finally found somewhere that had a long enough flat piece, I guess, to deflate the balloon.
And then roll it up.
Yeah.
But then there was the balloon ceremony, which
Right.
yeah. So on the description of what you get for 160 euros is you get champagne, which I was like, I don't really want champagne. Like I'd rather do it for less of a price, but without champagne. So champagne and a certificate that you did the hot air balloon ride.
Yeah, a certificate for participation, because I don't know how you win a hot air balloon ride, but okay.
But it turned out to be so much better than that. Because so we landed, and they set up a little table with champagne glasses. I'll give them that much.
Champagne flutes, yeah.
Yeah. And there were bottles there, so you could take pictures. So I think I took a picture just for funsies.
I don't think we got one. I think there was
No?
too many people crowded around it.
Oh, okay. So we didn't take a picture.
Yeah.
But then they start like shaking the bottles because they want the little pop thing. And then as they're shaking, they're like, "Don't worry, it's non-alcoholic." Okay, but then is it champagne? And then it's pink. And so, and I don't know if they told us or if when we tasted it that it was cherry
It's
flavor.
sparkling cherry juice.
So yeah, it was not as fancy as they.
I felt
said it.
lied to. And then so then after we all like cheers and had our champagne, he comes out with our certificates,
Which aren't certificates.
which weren't certificates. No, what were they all?
Oh, sorry. And they were medals. It was so much better. It was medals, and I saw. I don't know what it says on the front, but I know Jen. You saw the back of it first, and it was like rate us on TripAdvisor.
In bright green. It's like a sticker on the medal in bright green.
So there's that.
Review us on TripAdvisor. I think the front is just the name of the balloon company. I'm
Oh
pretty
yeah,
sure.
yeah, you're right.
So when it was time, so he went around and gave everyone their medals, like handed it to them because it's a participation medal. No. That was
You
not.
can't do that.
No, it's a medal, right? So Oliver comes up to him and he's like, "Oh wait, she's got to film this. So we got to wait for me to get set up." So he comes up and he like bows.
Well, you have to do it right. So I kind of went like I thought it was so ridiculous. So I tried to make a fun video out of it. So like I took off my hat, I bent over so that he would place the medal upon me, and then
I cheered in the
and
background.
Jen cheered. And so I don't know if the man behind me, I didn't see it. Jen told me this after. I don't know if he saw Jen cheering. I was like, I want to be part of it, or he thought like I was really happy to get my medal. So he cheered at me as well.
He just like he's like confused, like clapping in the back, like, okay, is this what we do? And I'm like, all right.
So that was quite fun. And yeah, it's just such a weird thing to get a medal for participating in a hot air balloon.
I mean, it's a weird thing to get a certificate for too. We were talking beforehand, like, what do people do with those certificates? Do you put it on your wall next to your like university degree? You're like, bachelor's of education, hot air balloon rider.
But now the conversation is, what do we do with this medal?
I mean, it's on a lanyard. At least the lanyard could be used for something. I mean, the TripAdvisor thing is bigger than the. I don't know.
But that was the hot air balloon ride. And yeah, so even though we wanted it for a later day, it was really good that we got it that day.
It's
And then-
really the only day we could have done it.
Right, yeah. And then the rest of the day, I think we looked around Goreme a little
Yeah, we explored the city that we were staying in.
bit. And then, yeah, I think that's about it that day. And then the second, and then we planned the following days. And there were 3 kinds of tours. There was and it seems that all of Goreme, at least, all advertises the same things.
Yeah.
It's hot air balloon, and then something called the green tour, something called the red tour, something called the blue tour.
Yeah. And the blue tour seems like the newest addition / most afterthoughty. Like, what else can we do? Because people don't come for 2 days; they come for more than 2 days. So we didn't do the blue tour. There's some overlap there.
Yeah. So and I think like our Airbnb host told us, like he's like, there's the 3 options, but like don't do the blue tour. Like he like he didn't say don't do it, but he really hinted heavily that
He said
you
like
shouldn't.
the red and the green were the best ones.
Yeah.
The blue tour was also more expensive for an unknown reason.
Yeah. And so really randomly we chose to do the green tour first and the red tour second.
I don't even know if we chose. I think we're just like, we're doing these 2
Oh no,
tours.
he asked me,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's like, which one do you want to do first? And I'm like, green tour? Like I didn't know.
Okay.
And he didn't advise me against it, but I think usually people do it the other way around.
Yeah.
Just because the red tour isn't as exciting. There's not as much to see.
It's more of like an introduction into Cappadocia and like background and.
Which they don't really say on it. Well, did they?
Yeah,
They did? Okay.
That's
Well,
why
they
I thought we
tell
didn't
us.
choose the order.
So the green tour, which was our favorite,
It also didn't give us food poisoning, so.
yeah, so many reasons to like it. They explained, I think what was really cool was that they explained the geography of Cappadocia. I think it was the first thing they mentioned. They took us to a high point and they're like, okay, look around, and you see on the mountains, there's a really, like you can see the streaks. And he's like, basically there was eruptions of like softer materials, and then there was like a layer of harder materials. which you can really clearly see, and you kind of get that like there's a lot of softer rock that can easily be dug into, and then we'll learn, I guess, during the red tour that there's some of the harder rock is on top, and if it erodes, it kind of protects all the softer rock below it. And so you can dig into the softer rock, so it kind of looks like a mushroom with the sort of the head being of harder rock and then the body of softer rock. You can dig into the softer rock, but sometimes the head gets too heavy or too big, and so it topples over, so then you're just left with like this cone shape.
Yeah.
And I think that's what our Airbnb was. I think that's what fairy chimneys are just conical shapes of softer rock, and then you can just dig into. And so our room was just a rock, so that was kind of cool. And you can see like the walls, it's not like, sure it's rock, but really they no, it's just rock that you can still see the marks of like how they dug into it. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. So he started off with that, and then telling us that Cappadocia means
beautiful horses
in Persian, because like that's what their trade was back in the day. And then the first thing we did, or I guess after he explained to us and saw the viewpoint, where do we go?
Did you do the underground city right away?
Yeah, that was my favorite, was the underground city. So he explained to us that a lot of early Christians were in the area, and they needed a lot of protection. And so they found out that like the easiest thing to do is just go underground, like just dig down. And they dug really deep. They could dig like 8 levels. 8 levels, and we could only see the first 4 because there had been a caving in or something.
Yeah, they're starting to collapse 5 and below.
So yeah, we could only see up to 4.
But they're over 4,000 years old, so like they used to be fairly structurally sound, he said.
So I guess it was more, the early Christians then did use them, but I guess they were not built for that.
I may be wrong. I think it was 4,000 years. I don't know.
But maybe it was earlier than that, and just the early Christians kind of, we'll go with that.
Because he was saying like the Byzantine time, they made wine, and then a lot of the people that were in the underground cities left and went to like Rome and France, and that's why their wine is so good, was because they fled from Turkey, where wine was apparently invented. I love finding out what's invented in the countries we go to, and then going to a neighboring country and them saying like almost the exact same thing.
Because Bulgaria said they invented wine, yeah.
And Serbian, Cyrillic alphabet. As did Serbia. Serbia and Bulgaria invented the Cyrillic alphabet, and I feel like somewhere else did too. Macedonia, did you say?
Yeah, I think.
So yeah, it's fun.
And yeah, so like it was a whole underground city, but it was not permanent. I think that's what I didn't really realize. It was like they were not there the whole time. It was just when there was danger, they could go down with all their things and live there for a couple of months at most, but it was not permanent. And yeah, they had water reserves. They had, they would collect all their feces and everything, because the soil is really poor. So they would, and that's why they had a lot of pigeons, because the pigeon
poop is gold. It's great fertilizer, apparently.
Yeah. So they had to collect everything and use it on their fields. So they collected it in the underground city. They had like stables for horses. They had a winery. They had they had everything in the underground city. And
there's a chapel.
A chapel, yeah, that's true. And yeah, the tunnels are really, really short. So before going in, he's like, is anybody claustrophobic? We're like, okay, that underground city, that makes sense. He's like, does anybody have knee problems?
Back problems. Hypertension. Hypotension. Microtension. I don't know. There was a lot of things that he listed off.
And then, yeah, because like for a sort of tallish person, you kind of had to stoop, and it did hurt my knees after a while, because I really had to be short. Like, you had to stoop, and I think everybody had to stoop. Maybe not the little girl.
I think the little girl probably did a couple times.
So I don't think we mentioned.
I don't think we mentioned the little girl. No.
There was a little girl in our tour who was about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
She was brilliant though. Like,
she did so well at the beginning of the tour. We're all kind of like, oh, there's a kid on the tour, but then she was a trooper. I mean, she handled it better than some of the adults on our tour. So. Yeah. But yeah, it is really small. There were times when I was like folded over in half, and my my toque was still like brushing against the ceiling. So I don't even know like what it would be like if you're a tallish person. Because as a shortish person, it was a lot of squishing.
But yeah, the tour guide did mention that a basketball player who once got stuck in there.
But he also insisted on bringing his like huge travel backpack in with him, and I can't see that fitting through there at all. So.
But yeah, the underground city, I think that was my highlight of that day. So because I mean, the hot air balloon was
balloon.
definitely. But that day the underground city was my highlight. I thought there was something else I needed to mention. Oh right, and then the door. So so the tunnel was like so small, and he explained it because when you have to crouch down and be very small, it doesn't matter how strong you are. Like you can only like single file it, and
you can't like have your shield out in front of you. You have to kind of like turn it sideways with you, so you can't really protect yourself when you're crouched down. So they had the advantage tactically.
and there was a lot of doors. So not doors as like we think about them, but like huge wheels made of stone with a hole in the middle that could just be rolled in front of a tunnel, and the hole in front was just so they could like put arrows and spears through them, so they could be the enemy. So yeah. After that, so that was my favorite, and after that we went to the Selime monastery, right?
I think we did the valley first.
Oh, okay. So we did the valley. Yeah, it was a canyon. So you made a good point that you said it would be a lot nicer in the summer.
Yeah, I think it would be so beautiful and green. Like it was really nice. There was a river running along all the way down. We had snow, so that was pretty, but it would be so lush and green in the summertime. And we just did a small chunk of it. I think he said it was 14 kilometers. It's the biggest valley in Europe, except for Cappadocia's in Asia. So I don't know how that statistic works.
Yeah, he was like, it's the second biggest canyon
In the
world
world.
because Grand Canyon is number 1, and it's the largest in Europe. But then and I kind of like nodded along, and then I was like, hold on, but Cappadocia is not in Europe. Like this is on the Asian side. But I didn't ask about it. Did I think about it the next day or something?
I think it was in the van on the way to
okay.
the next stop. But yeah, so
We didn't really ask about it.
I wrote it down as it was the biggest. I had to write it on a postcard, and I wrote that it was the biggest one in Turkey
Oh,
because
Fair.
continentally I have no idea. So it was a nice walk though. They described it as a hike. I would describe it more as like a leisurely stroll.
and then we did your favorite part, I think.
Yeah. Then we had
The
lunch,
Selime
and then we went to the monastery, which was really cool. Basically, it was a bunch of churches, monasteries, stuff just all carved into the mountain.
Yeah.
And it was just really neat to kind of go and explore, and it was like on a cliff, so you're kind of climbing up as you go, and you can explore all of the little like nooks and crannies and like holes in between the rooms, and it was just really neat. We kind of described it as it would be like a really cool playground for kids, like just
I think
to run
somebody
around
said
and
it like
explore.
from another tour. Was like, oh, this is like a cool playground. I'm like, yeah, it kind of is, just because of all the interconnecting like stairs and yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really neat. And you could see like the kitchen, and what else was there? There was like most of them were religious buildings, but they weren't all religious buildings. There's the grain storage, the kitchen. Maybe the rest were religious. I don't know. It was just it was really cool.
A lot
to
of
explore.
unmarked ones. A lot of
Yeah. Oh, and there was the winery, but we didn't go in there. That was on the way down. We were late to the bus.
And we lost the group.
They went to the bus, and we
They went to the
stayed
bus, and
in
then we
Montserrat.
thought they would wait for us at the bottom, but
The
I guess
entrance.
not.
They did not. So I don't know how long they waited for us. They were polite and didn't tell us.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really neat. Anything else you want to add to that one? No? And then from there,
I think that was it. At
we
least
went
for
to
like.
the Pigeon
Oh yeah.
Valley. There's lots of valleys.
And yeah, I guess what's interesting about like we said, pigeons were like important for fertilizer and apparently they didn't eat them.
Yeah, they still don't eat them, apparently.
But yeah, for fertilizer, and so they had pigeons everywhere, and you could really see like in the caves that we could see, like there were little holes everywhere for pigeons to nest in and then poop in, and then they would just collect it once a year and use it on the fields.
Yeah. They also used them as carrier pigeons, I feel he said too. But yeah, I was surprised they didn't eat them either.
I think that was it for that day, and then in the evening we just like we had the tour in our heads, so we kind of like laid low and we were tired. And then the red tour,
Our favorite tour.
which the guy. So I think it didn't start off really well because, whereas so in the green tour there was 6 Australians and 1 person from South Korea.
Yes.
But that was it. So everything was done in English. But in compared to the red tour was 6 people from Turkey.
Yeah.
And us. And so they're like, oh, we'll say it in Turkish and then we'll say it in English, which is fine.
Which is fair.
Yeah. But every time I felt like he would talk for half an hour in Turkish and maybe like a third of that with us.
Yeah.
And it'd be like when we get there, so we're like, we want to go out. We want to see like what there is to see. We don't want to hang out in the van.
Well, and that was the other thing. So he would talk like the whole drive from one place to another place would be in Turkish. And then we'd get to the parking lot of where we were supposed to be. And then he'd be like, okay,
By the way,
guys. And then he'd start talking in English. So the whole group usually had to sit in the van while he spoke in English, which isn't great. And then if he didn't do that and we all got out, then the rest of our tour would be out exploring all of the fun things that they'd just heard about. And we'd have to stand around in the freezing cold. I would like to specify how cold it was. We would have to stand outside for 10-15 minutes while he explained the 45-minute spiel he'd just given to them. And then I was like, but now we get less exploring time. And it was just kind of frustrating. And he gave good explanations, but I just think the guide the day before was better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's also, I just didn't think it was that fair that they got all the explanation and we just got a little tidbit and then we're like, okay, off you go. And so at some point we just started, he was explaining something in Turkish, so we went to the open air museum.
Yeah.
And we just left. We're like, okay, he's explaining something in Turkish. So we just left. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, Jennifer! It's like, oh, okay, that's us now.
Yeah.
And so we went to him and we did it. And listened to what he had to say.
Yeah, so we had that day, I'm just trying to think of the tours. We had the open air museum, which I think was very similar to the monastery, except for it had more paint.
Religious paintings. And, we didn't mention this in the French video, but we ran out of money.
Oh, right.
And Goreme, so where we were staying, has 6 ATMs.
Oh, 6 ATMs? Okay.
6 ATMs. None of them work.
Yep. We tried them all.
Yeah. And the bank machine, the credit card machine at the Airbnb didn't work either for the first night. So, so we didn't have, for the red tour, we had 20 liras in my wallet, which is 3 euros. And so, that did not, because in the open air museum, there was
an optional building.
Which was 18 liras, which was the best preserved painting ever. So we're like, no, let's not do it. We're happy with what we've seen. Yeah. And it was the monastery that we've seen the day before, just a lot less playground-y. It was more built, it was more It was more formal. It felt like you went into the churches and you couldn't talk, you had to be silent. And there was security guards in each and every section to make sure you didn't talk or take photos, because you weren't allowed to take photos. And then you said this in the French video, which I forgot about until you started talking about it. So our tour guide, after giving the Turkish spiel in the van and then having the English spiel with us outside in the cold, was like, okay, I have to tell you this out here because I can't talk inside the churches. The paintings on the wall, we want to preserve them. And if I talk in there, the humidity from my breath, it makes them deteriorates
them quickly. So we're like, oh, okay, so this is serious. Okay, well, we'll go in there. We won't talk. We won't take pictures. All right. So we go in there, and the first one we go into, there are not one but 2 security guards talking the entire time, not in a hushed whisper, loud voice talking, sitting next to a space heater. So I don't really know how much damage a tour guide would do talking in there, but it was funny.
Yeah. And then, so that was the open air museum. Then what was the other highlight of that?
The ferry chimneys.
So then that was at the very end of the tour. It was the ferry chimneys.
Oh, in your imagination.
Oh yeah, and then there was the 2 valleys. The Ihlara, smallpox one.
Smallpox valley.
Yeah. At the end of we did
the day before, wasn't it?
Oh no, it was the day before. You're
Yeah.
right.
That was our lovely 3-kilometer hike stroll.
True. That's Clara. So yeah, the fairy chimneys. It's basically the mushrooms with the cap still on, and there was a couple of those. It was pretty cool.
They were
Some of
very
them
cute.
carved inside, some of them not.
Some with doors.
Some with doors. It kind of reminded me of the Smurfs,
Yeah, it is like a Smurf village. They're very cute.
just in the desert.
Google fairy chimneys and you'll understand what we're talking about.
And then, before that, we were in Imagination Valley, which is kind of cool.
It kind of reminds me, Imagination Valley kind of reminds me of like the White Desert, where you go and there's just a bunch of different rock formations and you have to kind of use your imagination to see what they are.
And yeah, so there's like the camel, the baby camel,
The 2 ducks kissing,
2 ducks kissing,
Napoleon's hat,
Napoleon's hat,
the hand going like this.
yeah, whirling dervish that neither of us could see,
No, that was just
the dolphin,
and the dolphin, yeah.
and right, and then also the highlight was the restaurant.
Oh yeah, that was my highlight for the whole trip. Like Istanbul to now, the restaurant was my favorite.
So yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was strange because I would imagine like tours like this would give you a ticket to a restaurant like we did the day before, which is not necessarily like super.
It wasn't super gourmet, but it felt like a local.
Yeah, like just a
restaurant.
local place. But no, this was like masses. It was for the masses. It was.
Felt like a school cafeteria.
It was a buffet style, like all you can eat.
All the food was lukewarm
Yeah.
to cold.
So we ate, not super tasty, but we ate. And yeah, that night we both got food poisoning. Jen got it 2 hours before I did, and so I felt really bad until I got it, and then I was like, we're in the same boat now. Like I don't need to feel bad anymore.
And I tried really hard to be as sympathetic to you as you had been to me, but it was really difficult as I was also suffering.
Yeah, and then I thought I had. Oh right, and then something we forgot to do is like sort of describe Goreme, where we are, because it's such a touristy place. It's beautiful, like so you see all the fairy chimneys in the town and everything.
And you can see when the hot air balloons fly, you can see them like from our balcony.
You were right overhead.
You could just like look out the window and you can see all of them. You said it this morning. It felt a little bit like an alien invasion because you can just see them all kind of like right above you, just hovering there. But it's beautiful.
But it's also like I said, super touristy. It feels like shops there are either tourist shops or food restaurants.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw anything else. I think I saw one gym, but it was like at the very back or something.
I was like, I didn't see a gym.
Like,
I saw a
it's-
post office, but it was also
Oh, right.
down a side street.
But yeah, it's all tourist or restaurants.
Yeah, so travel agencies,
Yeah,
knick-knack shops, food.
true. Yeah, but that's about it.
And what kind of restaurants did you see mostly? Were they Turkish restaurants all
No,
over?
it was Chinese restaurants. There's a whole lot of Chinese restaurants, which led to a lot of discussions. But yeah, just a lot of signs in Mandarin. But yeah, it was just so obviously geared towards tourists.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of interesting to see like a busload of Asian tourists going like from their bus straight into a Chinese restaurant. I was like, oh, okay.
I will admit though, I can kind of understand that. I mean, the food poisoning has tainted me a little bit towards Turkish food, but I wouldn't say that
It's
there
not
was.
Turkish food though.
I was the bean.
We don't know that was.
I don't know if that's what caused it, but that's what I ate.
Okay.
But I haven't found a Turkish dish that I love.
No.
So
But we did try. So apparently the traditional food there, which we tried the first night, was like this.
it's a testy.
Okay, it's called a testy, and it's this. What was it?
Clay pot.
No, you're right, but what's the animal inside?
Yours was lamb. I think.
Lamb. So there's lamb prepared inside a clay pot, but like I don't know exactly. I think we might have had like a small hole on top or something, and they put it to you on your plate. And so I kind of looked at it, but it just seems like a big clay pot in front of you. It's like, how am I supposed to eat this? And then they come to you with a little hammer, and they break it and open it up, and that's like in the pot is what you're going to eat. So that was kind of cool.
And that was quite good actually.
Yeah.
It was just like a lamb stew.
But yeah, I think that was the traditional food that we tasted. Then the day after, we tasted like a bean dish
Yeah, which was not bad.
and a
Another lamb dish.
Lamb.
Yours might have been beef. I don't know. They had beef and lamb at the stew.
Yeah, I guess mine was beef. And anyway.
So I had lamb the next day. Mix it up.
But that's about it. And then yesterday was all about staying in bed.
And not moving. Moving was bad. Today we're able to move a little bit more energetically.
Yeah.
We officially kept solid food down for the last, I'd say, hour now.
And yeah, we're severely disappointed because we tried the airport food here, and we went to.
And it was our first solid food in over 40 hours.
Yeah.
I also feel like that is a factor.
Yeah, so we went to this restaurant, and so Jen was like, "Oh, my comfort food, nachos, brilliant! I'll get nachos." And I saw a chicken wrap. I was like, "Okay, I'll get a chicken wrap. Like it might be good." My chicken wrap was quite tasteless. I added barbecue sauce on it just
Like
to
a
have
lot
it.
of barbecue sauce. It had zero taste.
Yeah.
You could taste the chicken,
Do
obviously.
you want to describe your nachos?
So my nachos were, I don't know, like 15 tortilla chips
Yeah.
with like an anti-pesto sauce poured on top with Parmesan cheese
Like a sprinkling.
on top.
It was bad.
It was not good. I was so mad. Like, it took me so long to eat it just because I was like, this is the first food I'm eating in 40 hours and I don't want to eat it. It's not nachos. It doesn't taste good. And it's 10 euros. I was not happy.
Yeah.
I ate a lot of your French fries.
That's okay. And that's it. And then we're going to Cairo now in, I think, 3 hours now.
Ooh.
Oh, 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, 2 hours. Wow. 2 hours. And
Time flies when you're making 40-minute YouTube videos.
Yeah, yay. And yeah, that's about it. So I don't know when the next video will be because I don't know how much exciting things will happen in Cairo.
Ouch.
Yeah. But maybe if we go to Luxor or Aswan, you said you might want to do, or Daha, that could be fun.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for us for Cappadocia. Bye.
Bye.